You are listening to Fox Radio 910 and 104.3. I want to welcome you to Let's Talk About, our weekly radio program sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia. My name is Linda Balentine, the president of Crowning Touch and your host for this series. I interview local characters, service providers, politicians, teachers, entrepreneurs, and business professionals, and each one is dedicated to improving life in our valley. Every person has an interesting perspective to share from all walks of life. So, let's begin today's interview. Today on Let's Talk About, we're joined by Sarah Bidwell. Sarah is an estate planning attorney based in the Roanoke Valley and the owner of Wills on Wheels, a mobile law firm that brings complete estate planning services directly to homes and businesses across the Commonwealth. We'll talk with Sarah this morning about the importance of planning for the future, debunk some common myths, and learn how her unique approach is helping Virginians take control of their legal affairs with ease and confidence. Good morning, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All righty. I'm going to let you kick off by telling us a little bit about your background in law and what led you to focus on estate planning. How did you come to sit in the seat you're in?
So actually, I've known I wanted to be an attorney since I was in middle school.
Isn't that the neatest?
I don't know if it was watching JAG when I was little or what particularly, but I've known I wanted to be an attorney. And I went to William & Mary for undergrad and then Washington and Lee for law school. I knew Beautiful. I wanted to stay in our area.
Right.
You know, I wanted to be back here in our Roanoke region. And originally I focused on family law, domestic relations.
Wow.
So divorces.
You got your feet wet in a tangle.
Yes. Yes. Divorces, custody, child support. Obviously, as a part of that, I did some estate planning and that kind of led me to Wills on Wheels.
All righty. But Wills on Wheels is very special. What a neat concept. Why don't you explain it to us and how long you've been doing Wills on Wheels?
Yeah. So Wills on Wheels, I call it a mobile estate planning law firm. So I am 100% mobile. I don't have a brick and mortar office. I typically meet with my clients in their homes or senior centers, wherever they are most comfortable.
What a convenience. And by the way, you got the attention of the Salem Roanoke Chamber because you got a 2025 award. What was that? The best small business? What was that?
Yes. So I was awarded the 2024 Regional Business of the Year.
Isn't that the neatest? Okay. So that's a real coup for you.
Yes.
It's got to make you feel like you're doing something really worthwhile.
Yes. There were a number of businesses in our area. So to be selected as the Regional Business of the Year as a solo law firm is significant.
I know. It's very significant, very special. All righty. So explain a little bit more when the phone rings. Give me a typical day. You go into someone's house and what are you there for most of the time? And how does that work? And how do you get the privacy that you need when you walk into somebody's home and there are other people in the family? Do you set the stage ahead of time with them? Is it?
Yes.
So it's not just the kitchen table with everybody running in and out and
no.
Okay.
So we typically start with that initial consultation. If I'm meeting with someone in their home, we talk beforehand to schedule that and make sure that's a time that works for them. If they want family present, that's up to them.
Right.
Then we have a conversation about attorney-client confidentiality. I ask the kids to step out if the kids are there. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're not. Usually mom and dad want their adult children in the room to go over any questions and make sure that everyone's comfortable. So after I talk with mom and dad for a second, they usually will have the kids step back in to go through that. But the focus 100% is on the client. Whether there's someone else there or not, obviously if they've allowed them to be there, but focus is on the client and their concerns, their wishes. It's about them.
Is there an average age for the client that you're dealing with? I know that seniors would certainly appreciate this service because the older you get, the harder it is to find a place to park and walk a half a block or a block to somebody's office.
Yes.
But what is the average age of your client? You figured it out?
I would say between the ages of 50 and 70, somewhere within there, where people are still able to have the mental capacity to enter into their documents. They're able to take the time to think through this. They want to ensure they have a plan. They're now slowing down a little bit, maybe retiring, and thinking about making sure these documents are in place.
If you were sitting with someone and you intuited that they don't have the mental capacity, or they're not really, you're not being able to make a clear path, with them as to, and I know you know that.
Yes.
Then what do you do? Would you then stop and call in the children? How do you do that without even insulting the person you're sitting with? And sometimes we have to do with that in the moving industry as well.
Exactly.
When I have senior clients, it's just what you do. You want as many people involved as can be to certify the fact that everybody's making the right choice.
Correct. So we want to ensure that everyone has the requisite mental capacity to be able to do that. So if I have any concerns about that, obviously I'll discuss them with the client. If they've already invited their children into that consultation, then I may step aside and say, hey, I have some concerns about your loved one's ability to enter into these. And I've had that conversation with people a number of times. It is difficult, but every single person is different.
That's
so you want to
sure.
ensure that they know exactly what they are signing, the consequences of their decisions.
What areas of Virginia do you currently serve? I mean, you're in a car, you go anywhere. Interpret that for me?
Yes,
the Commonwealth is large.
It is very large. I'm typically averaging anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 miles a month in the car.
Right.
So I actually serve all of Virginia. I've had clients in Northern Virginia, Virginia Beach, down to Wytheville. Most everyone, though, is here in our region in the Roanoke Valley.
Sure, because there are enough people here that I would think would need your services even within 100-mile
Yes,
radius,
absolutely.
for sure. I was going to ask, what exactly is estate planning?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great question, because depending on who you are speaking to, they may have a different interpretation of that. Certainly if someone's working with a financial planner, they're focused on dollars. For me, estate planning is a process. It's not any one thing. It's the process of preparing for your aging, incapacity, as well as the distribution of your estate.
So even if you don't have a lot of assets, you still should spend some time focusing on estate planning.
Yes,
Okay,
certainly,
that's
because
interesting.
preparing for that aging and incapacity, that incapacity could come at any point in time, whether that is a sudden vehicle accident or a stroke. None of us know when something like that could happen. So you want to ensure that no matter what your age, certainly if you're over 18, you think about putting these things in place.
So you, how is your bedside manner? Do you find yourself in hospitals on
do.
occasion?
I do. I find myself in hospitals and nursing homes a lot. And certainly that's because I am mobile. So I'll travel to my clients, but it's not always that someone is physically unable to get to me. Sometimes it's just convenience. People like being able to have me in their home.
Well, but I would also think, if you're in a hospital, there's some last minute stuff that has to go on. In other words, somebody just realized, or somebody in the family realized, that this person doesn't have a will.
Yes.
That it's all going to go to probate, and they're going to waste a lot of money and time doing that.
Yes.
What are some of the key documents you think every adult should have in place?
Yeah. So as a disclaimer here,
Right.
I will say this is general legal advice for Virginians. Certainly, if you're listening to this somewhere further away or anyone here, you want to make sure you call an attorney and work with them to be able to discuss this. But overall, general legal advice,
Right.
My recommendation would be that someone has at least a will, a power of attorney, and an advance medical directive, because each of those do different things. But those are what I call the big three.
All right. So explain the power of attorney for people that are listening.
Yeah, that's one of the more complex ones. So your power of attorney is a document where you are granting someone else the authority to act on your behalf. Now, it doesn't take away your ability to act, but they can act in conjunction with you if you have a general durable power of attorney that's in effect when you sign it. They can do anything from signing documents.
Take money out of your bank?
They could.
So you really need to trust who in the world.
You need to trust them. Now, certainly under the Virginia Code, they have to act in your best interest at all times. And if they misstepped, you can revoke that power of attorney, remove them, name someone else. But it's a very useful document, because if you were unconscious and you didn't have that power of attorney,
nobody could get money out of your bank account to even pay your bills.
Correct.
To even pay your water bill.
Unless they're already a joint owner.
Right.
But usually, if that's the case, it's a spouse.
Well, yeah, but for somebody who lives alone, it becomes very important.
Very, very important.
Right.
Absolutely.
Huh. Interesting. So at what stage of life should someone start estate planning? Because I know a lot of young people say, well, I don't have anything. But I had a husband and die when I was 33.
Exactly.
And nobody would have thought.
No,
Okay,
certainly nobody thinks about that.
So, so I guess you would say what about the average age, or when is too early? Is it ever too early?
I don't think it's ever too early. Certainly you have to be at least 18 to enter into these. But if you think about people that are engaged, maybe they've been engaged for a couple years, right? We're just past COVID, so sometimes weddings get pushed out a little bit. So they're engaged for a couple of years. Technically, legally, they don't have the authority to act on each other's behalf. They're just significant others. That doesn't give them any legal standing.
Yeah, that's
so if they were, engaged to this person for a number of years and they were suddenly in an accident, or maybe they are trying to commingle finances, but they don't have joint accounts yet, but maybe they have a joint household together.
Right.
You want to ensure that that person that you are with and want to be with has the authority to act on your behalf.
Right.
So for my engaged couples, that's really something to think about.
Yeah, that is very, very. So are there any other common misconceptions people might have about estate planning other than we've already discussed a couple? One is that you have to have a lot of assets to make it worthwhile. So that's been debunked.
Right. And so the other common misconception is that people don't need to think about it until they are on their deathbed or until they do get a diagnosis where they know that things are nearing the end. That's certainly the biggest misconception. I've met with people even in their 70s or 80s, and they think they don't have to think about estate planning yet.
I got you. That's probably because they want to avoid these conversations. Nobody likes to talk about death or pending disability or, how is that an issue that a hill you have to walk up with them in order to get them to where they need to be?
It absolutely is. And I always have in mind the topics that I'm talking about are difficult. They are difficult for people. So when I come in, I try to be as friendly as possible. That's just who I am.
Yeah, right.
I'm
I'd
joking.
sign up with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to be
easy.
friendly. I try to explain things in a way that we're not just focused on someone passing.
Right.
We're focused on them living. We're focused on all the things they've been able to do and want to be able to continue to do. So when we're done, sometimes clients will give me a hug.
Yeah,
which is fantastic.
I bet they do. They do. Let me ask you this. Is there any difference between the receptivity of men versus the receptivity of women as we sit down at the table? Tell me, give me a little in-depth analysis of the difference between the genders and the way we might deal with it.
Absolutely. So I do some presentations, and on one of my slides, I talk about common misconceptions or things that I hear a lot. Usually if I'm sitting down with an older gentleman, he will say something along the lines of, everything's going to my wife. I don't need to worry about it. She's going to be set. I don't want to do this. They really don't want to get into those difficult topics. And generally, if I'm sitting down with a much older lady, she's focused on her kids. And maybe we have one kid that's doing fine and maybe one child that's not doing so well. And she's mainly focused on being fair. It's all about fairness. So I'm having to navigate those complex family relationships as well.
So it sounds like you almost have to be a politician to make this process easier and comfortable for your clients.
Or a therapist.
Yes, therapist. There you go. That's even a better analogy. What do you say to people who think, well, you've already sort of explained it, that estate planning is only for the wealthy. Let's deal with that estate planning aspect. I understand anybody can understand the power of attorney. They can understand that.
Yep.
And they can understand the medical directive.
Absolutely.
I would think that people would say, "Well, I don't need that. I don't need the estate planning part."
Right. They don't need a will.
We just have a house and a car.
Right. Certainly.
So, is there merit to that?
There is some, and it depends on someone's assets. But your will does more than just hand out your estate. It actually allows you to name an executor. It gives you the ability to leave your family with some clarity about who you would want to step in as your executor, who you would want to step in if there was an account established for a grandchild. You are able to give your family clarity and a path, even without focusing on the assets.
The other thing that I think we ought to remind our listeners about is that because somebody puts something down in paper with you, doesn't mean that 3 months later they can change it if they need to, correct?
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's just is that just a phone call? Is that another visit or what? Because either one of the children gets divorced and something else happens, there are all sorts of contingencies, correct?
There are. And that's why I do recommend reviewing your estate planning, taking a look at it after something major has happened. If nothing major has happened in the last 10 years, you're still going to want to pull it out and take a look at it and update it if necessary. So as far as changes, there used to be More common were codicils, which is an amendment to your will. Depending on the level of change, you may choose to do that. But with Microsoft Word now,
Right.
it's almost as easy to redo.
In the cloud.
Exactly. It's in the cloud. So it's almost as easy to redo, reformalize everything so there is no confusion. A lot of times with codicils or handwritten wills, that's where you get into some confusion about what is the current version.
But they could theoretically email you about a change, correct?
Yeah.
And would you be able to implement it then?
So we'd go through that same process of if they emailed me about it, which I do have former clients reach out and want to make changes, we'd set a quick meeting, go over their change. They're already up to speed. I've met with them, so it's a lot easier to make a quick revision if necessary than to start from scratch. And we'd still have that same secondary meeting where they sign their documents.
Where should they keep copies of their wills? I mean, in the old strong box or fireproof safe, or, besides, right. I mean, if we had a cyber attack and the grid goes down, there's nobody to, I
understand. Yeah.
We should have written copies somewhere.
So actually the original will, that wet ink signature is really what controls.
Okay.
So you want to keep that safe, and you also want it somewhere where your executor could locate it after your passing. So it's not one of those where you want to hide it because then they can't find it, which happens sometimes, but you don't want it out to where it could be damaged by water or stepped on or, folded up. You want it to be able to be protected. Sometimes people will put them in a safety deposit box.
Okay.
However, you want to make sure there's a secondary person on that because it's locked.
Oh, wow.
And if you've passed, they can't access that.
That's right.
Some people will lodge it with their local courthouse. Some of our counties and cities allow you to lodge your will there. I believe it's $5. And the court actually acts as that safe deposit box.
Wow.
And has it there.
Very interesting. What happens if someone passes away without a will in the state of Virginia?
Yeah.
Let's explain that, because that's part of what you're trying to help people avoid.
Yes. Now, Virginia has an entire code section on intestate succession. There's your fancy legal term for today.
Where can they find that code? If they wanted to go online right now and read about some of the state law in Virginia.
Yeah, so the Code of Virginia is online. There's a legal information system that has that written out on there, so everyone's able to access that. A quick Google search, Code of Virginia. Now, it does change over time. You want to make sure if you are reviewing that, you're looking at the most recent code section.
Right.
But Virginia does have an entire code section on intestate succession, so someone dying without a will, and sets forth the lineage of people who would inherit if someone passed without
Who's
that.
the next? Explain the lineup a little bit of the first few people that would be entitled to whatever. Explain that.
It's pretty intuitive. Obviously, the first few people are going to be a spouse and any children. Now, things do get a little bit more complicated if someone has children from a previous marriage, regardless of whether they're adults or minors.
And so that could be one of the things that you help people deal with. I actually have experienced something, having been in my business for 30 years and moving a bunch of seniors. Mm-hmm. They frequently consider getting remarried again once they've lost their spouse.
Yes.
And then it's always an issue that has to be dealt with.
It does.
And put on the table that, I'm willing to marry you, but I want everything that comes from my family to go to my children. You have things from your former wife, let's say, that goes to their children, that type of stuff. So that's part of the separation that can be outlined
in their estate planning. And that's certainly, you want to make sure, and that's really what estate planning is about, is letting your wishes be known to your family and ensuring that there's clarity. There's no family fighting after both of those people have passed.
I wanted to discuss, or have you discuss, the importance of the whole do-it-yourself culture, which has really predominated because the internet has made so much info available to us that we think we can sit down and read the Code of Virginia and then write it out on a napkin ourselves. I mean, there is some truth to some of that. In other words, you can purchase a car on a table napkin,
right,
and agree to terms,
right.
And so there is some, but there are also great big mud holes to step in.
There are. That's a good way to put it.
Explain some of that.
There are certainly some mud holes. So Virginia does allow holographic wills. Those are handwritten wills. However, they have to jump through a number of different hurdles and hoops and requirements to be considered valid. And most people don't think about that. They simply think if they do, scratch on a napkin.
And have a witness. Does a witness help?
Have a witness. So that doesn't secure it. That doesn't make it.
The witness could die.
Right. The witness could die. There are a lot of other things that aren't in there. And even if you have a printed will from any sort of company, not going to name names there, but
stuff
there's
online.
A lot of,
that's right.
Yes, stuff online. There's a lot of fill in the blanks. Now, the problem with that is you're interpreting legal jargon. There's a reason attorneys have to go to school and we have to do continuing education, because that language is specific. It does make a difference whether something is per capita, per stirpes, whether you want to leave it to the heirs of your beneficiary or whether you want it to go to your surviving children. And each of those pieces you want to make sure are correct. You wouldn't write your own insurance policy.
That's a great analogy. That is a great analogy. Yeah, isn't that something? All righty. So, do you want to give some advice to someone who has been putting this off? In other words, their thought was, well, I can do it at the last minute. If something happens to me, I'm just sitting there and,
Certainly.
I know you've got some advice. Let's hear it.
So, first advice, send a call, set up an initial consultation, even if it's just walking through to understand the pieces of information, the different estate planning documents, understanding what you need, and then understanding the process. A lot of people put that off because they think it's going to be a burdensome process where they need to bring in bank statements and tax returns, and it's not. It's more of a conversation. Certainly we can get into financial pieces, but it's not as hard as they make it seem.
Do most attorneys charge for that first consultation? They do, don't they?
Yeah,
they do.
Typically.
All right, you're going to charge, but you're going to show up at their house.
Yes, absolutely.
There's real value to that.
Yeah, and sometimes people have a telephonic consultation. If they just want general information, we can set up a telephonic consultation, but most people want that in person. They want to know who they are meeting with.
I gotcha. What is the first step then that someone should take if they're going to get their affairs in order? The very first step is the phone call. Very first step would be the phone call. And then at home, they're thinking about, who do I want to name as executor? Who do I want to name as my agent under the power of attorney? Who do I want to make medical choices for me? So giving some consideration to that, and also a plan B. If something happens to your spouse, who's going to be the backup person? If you don't have a spouse, maybe you have one child. Right.
Who's going to be a backup? And making sure those are built in so your documents are flexible.
Shouldn't you have had conversations with those people as well, too, don't you think? I mean, otherwise it's a big surprise. I know people that have been nominated and tagged for a power of attorney or executor of an estate. Can you explain the difference between an executor and
an agent under the power of attorney? Yeah,
that's correct.
Yeah, so your power of attorney is actually only valid while you are alive.
Okay.
So your agent is the person you name in your power of attorney to act on your behalf, and that's while you are alive. When you pass away, that's when your will comes into your effect, and then your executor takes over. Now, sometimes those can be the same person. They usually are, but they don't have to be. But the main difference is that timing and then their responsibilities and requirements.
And then somebody has to be willing to be an executor. I've watched executors, and sometimes that can be a year-long process of sorting through all sorts of, basically they're retiring the paperwork of your life.
Right.
So signing off, paying everything, getting everything done, selling what needs to be sold. It's a huge job.
Sometimes it is, but that's why working with an attorney and doing that estate planning, one of the things that we are able to do is try to manage that process and narrow it down for your executor.
Now, do you ever help people who neglected to take care of these situations and were already in a mess and then they're on your phone? Do you have that type of situation?
Sometimes. So sometimes there are some last minute circumstances where people need me to be there because they are quite sick, or they want to make a change and they're worried something's going to happen to them before they go on a large trip. So there are some last minute circumstances. I don't do estate administration, which would be guiding the executors through that process. But there are certainly a number of firms that do help with that.
Let's invite people to, or at least explain how people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about Wills on Wheels.
Yeah, certainly. So you can always give me a call, 434-435-1390, or visit my website, willsonwheelsva.com.
Can we go ahead and, if you want to, we have a couple minutes, and I wanted to see if there was anything else in general. We've covered all of this stuff in such rapid fashion, but as we're reflecting, I don't want to say goodbye to you especially if there's still something else that you think you would like to say.
That's
to
perfect.
people.
So there is one other piece. I actually do some educational seminars. So I've partnered with a number of libraries in our area, Botetourt County, Salem Library. I've worked with the Roanoke Regional Chamber, certainly with the Essig Center in Rocky Mount, our senior center there, our Salem Senior Center. So I actually do educational seminars around the community, and I touch on those estate planning essentials. I walk through those different documents, give a little more in-depth explanation of the differences, and I also do emergency preparedness binders. So people can sign up for one of those classes if they simply look on my website. There's a listing of where I'm going to be and when, and then the sign-up links for those, and they can come see me out in the community if they want to learn a little bit more before setting that initial consultation. That's usually a great way for them to understand and feel comfortable before they're setting that.
So what kind of feedback have you received from some of these communities that you've worked with? I would think would be five star.
It is, absolutely. Just people are thankful. That's the main thing. People are so thankful that they're able to learn more, understand the difference, and it's available to them in an approachable way. You get online and there's so many different articles. It's a little more confusing. People may want to understand what the differences are before they set that consultation so they can ask more in-depth questions during that. So having those basics or simply checking that what they have is good. They want to have that peace of mind.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to our next senior luncheon that we sponsor at Crowning Touch.
Oh, absolutely.
And we do several a year. And the last one, Joyce Wall was here and did Ducks in
a Row, yes.
And you would be a perfect speaker. So I will let you know when we have that. It'll probably be November, December.
Yes.
And see if we can't get together with you. And because I think people would really, really appreciate some insight. I just want to thank you so much for being here today. It's been a real joy. That was Sarah Bidwell, owner of Wheels on Wheels. It's a little tricky to say. Wheels on Wheels. So if you're ready to get your affairs in order or just want to learn more about mobile estate planning, you can reach out to her directly or visit her online. And so remember, peace of mind starts with a plan.
Yes,
absolutely. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, dear. Bye-bye. You've been listening to Let's Talk About, courtesy of Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia, the only moving company with a consignment shop, auction house, and real estate division. We are a one-stop shop for any senior making a move. Check out our website at crowningtouchusa.com. Or if you are planning a move, call Anna at 540-982-5800 to arrange a free estimate. And don't forget to check out our monthly browse and bid auctions at 6712 Williamson Road in Roanoke, where you can bid online on over 1,800 items each month. Meanwhile, let's get back together next Friday at noon for more of Let's Talk About on Fox 910 and 104.3.